So he fired me over a $50,000 loss using the same report I gave him to flag it. How does the warning just disappear and I became the problem overnight?
This is your fault. My boss slammed the report down so hard the whole table shook. I was standing in the middle of the conference room, 12 people watching, HR in the corner, the CFO dialed in, while Victor pointed straight at me like he'd already decided the ending. $50,000 doesn't just disappear, he said. Someone approved it. I tried to speak. I flagged that account. There's no way I... Enough. His voice cut through mine, cold, final. Someone has to take the blame. You're fired. I didn't argue. Security stepped in before I could even process it. My badge was already dead. And that's when it hit me. The report he was holding was the one I submitted to warn him. Then the CFO's voice crackled over the speaker. Victor, are you sure that's the full audit trail? Victor didn't hesitate. Yes. But his hand? It was shaking. Security didn't rush me, but they didn't give me a choice either. One stood just behind my shoulder, the other already holding a cardboard box like this was routine. Like I was routine. Grab your things, one of them said quietly. No one in the room spoke. Chairs stayed perfectly still. Eyes dropped to laptops, to notepads, anywhere but me. Except Lena. She was across the table, fingers frozen mid-typing, staring at Victor like she was trying to solve something that didn't add up. I looked back at him. Victor, you know I flagged this. I sent you the report myself. His jaw tightened. And yet, here we are. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. He didn't even look at me when he said it, just straightened his cuffs like the conversation was already over. The CFO's voice cut in again, sharper this time. We'll need documentation for the audit, Victor, full logs. You'll have them, Victor said immediately. Too immediately. Because 3 days ago, I did send those logs. I stayed late pulling everything, timestamps, approvals, anomalies, and emailed it directly to him in finance. I remember hovering over the send button, thinking this was exactly what he'd want. Clean, careful, thorough. Now he was holding that same report, like it was proof I'd done something wrong. Let's go, the guard said, nudging the box toward me. I packed in silence. My laptop was already locked remotely. My login, gone. Years of work, access, everything, cut off in seconds, like I'd never been there. As I turned to leave, I heard someone whisper, barely audible. Wasn't he the one who caught the discrepancy? No one answered. The hallway outside felt too bright, too normal. People walking past, phones ringing, printers humming, like nothing had just happened inside that room. Like I hadn't just been erased in front of everyone. At my desk, I grabbed the last of my things. A notebook, a charger, a coffee mug I didn't even remember buying. The security guard didn't say a word, just watched the whole time. And that's when it started to feel wrong in a different way. Not just unfair, controlled. Like this wasn't a mistake, it was containment. Because if I really had approved that $50,000, why was Victor the one who looked like he was about to lose control? I walked out of the building without looking back. 2 days later, my phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? There was breathing on the other end, uneven, fast. Then Victor's voice, lower than I'd ever heard it. They got it. A pause, like he was choosing his next words carefully, or panicking. Please tell me you didn't send it. You didn't send what? I asked, already sitting up straight, but the line went dead. I stared at my phone for a few seconds, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. Victor had just fired me in front of the entire team, and now he sounded like he was the one in trouble. That didn't make sense, unless something had changed, or something had been found. I opened my laptop and pulled up everything I still had access to. Most of my work files were locked behind company systems, but I had one habit that suddenly mattered more than anything. I backed up drafts locally when I worked late, and 3 nights ago, I worked very late. That was the night I found the discrepancy. 2 payments, same vendor, same amount, approved within minutes of each other, but processed differently in the system. One clean, one forced through. I remember checking access logs. Only 2 people could override approvals like that. Me and Victor. I didn't do it. I searched my sent emails. Nothing. The thread I know I sent, the one with the full breakdown, the flags, the timestamps, it was gone. Not deleted, just missing.
Okay, so the email that proves I won them suddenly disappears. That's not a glitch, right? Who even has the ability to do that?
That's when Lena's voice echoed in my head from earlier that week. Be careful with that account. At the time, she wouldn't explain. Now I understood why. I dug into my local folders, scrolling through auto-saved files until I found it. A draft version of the report. Incomplete, but still detailed. My pulse started picking up as I opened it. Because if this file said what I thought it did, then Victor didn't just blame me. He needed me blamed. I scrolled to the bottom and froze. There it was, a flagged entry I hadn't even finished reviewing. Manual override, approved by VH, and the timestamp? 11:47 p.m. I wasn't even logged in. So who was, and why did Victor sound terrified about something being sent? The timestamp didn't move. 11:47 p.m. A clean, undeniable mark. I leaned back, staring at it, replaying that night in my head. I'd left the office before 9. My login session would have been closed automatically. There was no way I approved anything after that, which meant one thing. Someone used access that wasn't supposed to be used. My phone buzzed, a LinkedIn notification, then another, then 3 more. I opened one message. Hey, is everything okay over there? Hearing some stuff about an internal audit. Another. They're saying finance flagged fraud. Your name's being mentioned. My chest tightened. This wasn't staying inside the company. It was spreading, publicly. Before I could even respond, a new message came in. Lena, we need to talk, not here. 10 minutes later, we were on a call. She didn't waste time. Victor came to finance the day after you sent your report, she said. He told us to adjust entries, said there were formatting errors that needed to match audit expectations. Adjust how? Change timestamps, reassign approvals. My grip tightened around the phone. That's not formatting. I know. Her voice dropped. I refused. He pulled me off the account that same day. I understood. Silence sat between us for a second. Then she added carefully, there's something else. I didn't interrupt. There's a backup server, she said, separate from the main system. Logs there can't be edited, not even by him. My heart started racing again. And? I asked. They've started pulling those logs, she said. IT got involved this morning, which meant whatever Victor changed might not hold. Suddenly, his call made sense. They got it. He wasn't guessing. He knew. Lena exhaled softly. Ethan, if those logs show what I think they will, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. My phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. We're reviewing the backup logs now. I didn't reply to the message. I just stared at it, like responding might somehow change what they'd find. Minutes felt stretched, hollow. Then my email refreshed. 3 new messages, 2 from former coworkers. HR just locked Victor's account. Something's seriously wrong. They're pulling everything. The third one stopped me cold. From corporate legal, subject, request for statement, urgent. My chest tightened as I opened it. Inside was a short note asking for my version of events, and an attachment labeled Preliminary Audit Extract. I downloaded it instantly. The document was stripped down, technical, but clear enough. Multiple override entries, same vendor, same amounts. Each one tied to a user credential. Victor Hale. Not mine. I scrolled further. Timestamps lined up with the discrepancies I'd found. Late-night entries, off-cycle approvals, patterns that weren't even subtle once you knew where to look. But then something didn't sit right. Several entries were logged during times I knew Victor was in executive meetings. I'd been there for 2 of them. He didn't leave the room. So how was his access being used? I went back to my draft logs, cross-checking. Same pattern, same overlap. which meant this wasn't just him covering tracks. There was more happening behind it. My phone rang again. Victor. I answered this time. You don't understand, he said immediately, voice tight, almost breaking. If they open everything, it's not just me. I stood up without realizing it. What did you do, Victor? A pause, then lower. I didn't think they'd go that far. I didn't think they'd go that far. That was the last thing Victor said before the line went quiet again. He never answered my question. He didn't have to. Because an hour later, I got the full report. Not the stripped-down version, the real one. IT had pulled the backup server logs, unchangeable, time-stamped, and tied to access points. And this time, it wasn't just user credentials, it was session data, IP addresses, remote logins, device fingerprints. Victor's account had been used to approve every single one of those transactions, but not always from inside the office. Several approvals came from external connections, routed through a remote access tool that wasn't even authorized by the company. And it all traced back to one place, the vendor. The same vendor receiving the duplicate $50,000 payments, a shell account, set up months earlier, approved personally, by Victor. He built it. He hadn't just manipulated the logs after the fact, he built the pipeline from the start. And when I flagged the discrepancies, he used my report to figure out exactly what needed to be altered, and who to pin it on. Me. But the part he didn't expect? The backup system logging every remote session tied to his credentials, including the ones that proved he'd shared access. That's why some approvals happened while he was in meetings. He wasn't behind the screen, someone else was. And now, there was a complete trail. By the end of the day, everything moved fast. Victor was terminated, not quietly, officially. Internally flagged, then publicly removed once the legal team stepped in. Charges followed: fraud, falsifying records, unauthorized system access. The company issued a formal statement, then they called me. The CFO, this time without a speaker delay. We made a mistake, he said. A serious one. They offered reinstatement, compensation, a written apology. I listened. Then I declined. Not out of anger, just clarity. Because walking back into that building wouldn't undo what happened in that room, wouldn't change how quickly they needed someone to blame. Lena testified during the investigation. Her refusal to alter records protected her, and it showed. She was moved into a higher role within weeks. As for Victor, the last voicemail he left me sat unopened for a day. Then two. When I finally played it, it was shorter than I expected. No excuses, no explanations, just one sentence. I need you to tell them I didn't do this alone. I deleted it, got up from my desk in a different office, new job, new team, and didn't think about him again. Because he needed someone to take the blame. He just never thought the truth would take it back.
If one report can be flipped and someone erased like that, how many of these mistakes aren't mistakes at all? And would you even see this coming if it happened to you?